The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom came out in 2023. I was very excited for its release. I waited impatiently, watching the trailers after the trailers, rewatching them in a loop, and generally being super hyped for what the game might have to offer. It turns out actually I've been so disappointed by the game that it made me angry, and I think this is the most disappointed I've been with a Zelda release ever since the inception, or ever since I discovered the series all the way back with Ocarina of Time. And I will share to you why actually I'm so disappointed. Because I am. The game is a sequel to Breath of the Wild, reusing most of the assets and the world. The problem is with the world is that it's barely altered. I thought, oh my god, they're going to take the game, they're going to take the map, and they're going to make huge alterations. Maybe some parts of the maps will be missing because they went up in the sky, or there will be great reefs, or mountains will rise. The landscape will change, but still retain some familiarities in some area. But it turns out that no, the map is not changed. As far as I've seen, I finished Tears of the Kingdom and I explored most of the map. It's the same. It's the same map as Breath of the Wild, and if you explore just like me, all corners of that map in the previous game, what is there to offer in the sequel if it is the same? The Legend of Zelda is a game revolving about exploration, especially in these last two games. And I do not think they succeeded quite well with the fact that this map is the same, so exploration is greatly diminished. Now I think comes one of the points of Tears of the Kingdom that is the most disappointing of them all. And frankly, I'm not sure if that's a hyperbole that I'm saying right there. Tears of the Kingdom fucked up so much with the Sky Islands. Ever since the reveal of the game, there was an importance placed on the Sky Islands that has been lacking in great amount in the final game. The new feature of Tears of the Kingdom was the sky. High above Hyrule, much to explore up there. So you can imagine my disappointment and the disappointment of many people when it turns out that the Sky Islands are nothing more than small, copy-pasted little pieces of rock floating in the sky with barely anything to do on them, or the same puzzles repeated over and over and over again. There's even a region that is the Gerudo Desert that has barely or any Sky Island on there, as far as I understand, as far as I remember. It should have been different. In my feeling, the Sky Islands should have been the main aspect that the game should have revolved around, that you would have needed to ascend higher and higher up upon the Sky Islands, reaching the dungeons placed at different altitudes, themed of course, on these huge and expensive Sky Islands. And you could have, went into these dungeons, repaired your Master Sword there, and maybe you would have needed to reach the heavenly realm of the gods that is high above the sky. You would have made your way up there through the ascension of the Sky Islands. It turns out that no, the sky map of the game is a disappointment to me. The best part of the game is the introduction. Because you are in the Sky Island, the Great Sky Island, it's the biggest piece of land in the sky. You are limited in your tools, which makes it so you have to be creative to cross the gaps that you might fall down below in the void. The paraglider ruins it to me, because there's no sense of danger of falling off these platforms. Building vehicles to cross the gaps, or sticking trees together on that Great Sky Island, was really the peak of the game to me. And when the game peaks in its introduction, I feel like there's something fundamentally wrong with the game. So yes, these Sky Islands were not exciting and an utter disappointment. The depth is really cool that they kept the depth a secret. Nothing was revealed about them in the trailers, except that you could see these holes in the ground, but nobody knew what they were about. Maybe people thought they were mini dungeons. It was the depth entrances, and the depths themselves are an uninteresting bland biome, with barely anything to do within, barely any interesting structures. You just go there to mine some ores to improve your battery, or find amiibo chests. Yes, I say amiibo chests because these are not unique rewards down there. No, these are pieces of equipment you can just spawn with your amiibos. It's cool that you can just find the amiibo rewards without needing the amiibos, but really, what's the point? After spending a minimal amount of time in that landscape, it just becomes uninteresting. And this is so baffling. Why would you stretch the same biome over the whole map without really putting anything interesting in it? Also, there's the fact that the topography of the place is just an inverted version of Hyrule, which means that it's very messy to me. It did not feel good to traverse. I tried to build cars, but cars did not work very well. The most optimal way is just to build a flying vehicle. But again, everything in this game is optimally set for a flying vehicle, I feel. How a bike, anyone? The story was also one of the most disappointing aspects of the game. Lots of disappointing points I will notice so far. The story was a mess. Why use memories again? It wasn't engaging. The story should have been set in the present day. Experience it yourself. No, this time they went again with the Breath of the Wild formula. Take a peek at the past where the story already happened, where interesting stuff already happened. You are left with the crumbs again in the present day. Ganondorf is a disappointment. He appears at the beginning and never appears until the end of the game. There are interesting moments that happen. Mostly with Zelda turning, spoilers, into a dragon. Were these points really elevated by the way the story was told? I don't think so. The story and narrative felt like an afterthought, but personally I was not engaged with the storylines that the game puts you through 4 times to reach the 4 dungeons of the game, or 5 dungeons of the game. I didn't find the characters particularly interesting. I mean, the 4 sages, the ancient sages, how more bland can you make them? The 4 repeated cutscenes at the end of each dungeons, that was really baffling. The story and the way it was presented just felt unsatisfying, because there is the skeleton of a good plot in there, but it wasn't correctly told. As I said, it should have been a story that took place in the present day, and a story presented in a linear way. I also find combat to stay relatively unsatisfying to experience in the game. They did not improve upon the combat of Breath of the Wild. It's 1 for 1, it's the same thing. Weapons did not get new moves, it's the same, no new weapon types as far as I understand. The durability problem is still there, and I've heard that the menuing, going through all the menus, interrupts the flow of the game, and I would tend to agree. Fusing materials to your arrows is a cute feature, but it also takes you out of, the intensity or the flow of the combat. Everything stops very often. For me, the combat is serviceable, but I find it such a shame that it is still the same from Breath of the Wild, with nothing improved upon, or very little if there's any, but I don't even realize that there's anything added, really. Parrying is useless, as always. Flurry rushing is obviously the way to go, because it's straight up better. And I'm sure that creative people and speedrunners will take advantage of the physics systems to really get some cool clips out of fighting enemies, but as a casual player, it's still the same button mashing business. And I feel like the puzzles of the game were overall slightly too easy. I think the abilities that the game presents you, Ultra Hand, Ascend, they're good abilities, probably an upgrade from the Giga Slate's abilities from Breath of the Wild, but I'm not sure if they're fully utilized to their potential. I feel like the puzzles that use them are overly easy. They don't really dive deep and make great use of your brain in the game. Maybe it's because of the open world design of the world that makes it so each shrine might be your first one. If any shrine can be your first experience with a puzzle, I feel like it has to set a base as to not make it too difficult for people that find them, maybe for the first time. In my playtime, I wasn't too challenged, and they should have made my brain work a bit more. And even if Ultra Hand is that very deep mechanic and building vehicles can be fun, I feel like it's a feature that is very quite optional all in all. Some people, maybe they made it optional so people wouldn't have to use the feature too much if they did not enjoy it. I feel like the game development took such a long time because they had to make it work without too many problems. But in the end, if you take so much time to develop a feature that will not be utilized to a deep level, was it really worth it in the end? Again, cool clips on the internet of people building complex machinery, but for the casual player, it kind of is just there, isn't it? And about exploration in the game, it still doesn't feel too good. It's especially emphasized with the fact that the map is the same as Breath of the Wild, that the sky is so empty, and that the depths are so bland. There's no great rewards to find. There's no unique equipment, except in the depth, but you can get them from amiibos. There's no new abilities, except one. There's one ability that is tied to your Ultra Hand. You can find it quite easily, in fact. There is a combat ability that you can find if you manage to do this Yiga questline by finding Yiga equipment and training under them. I didn't bother doing it, to be honest. But other than these two abilities, was there any unique reward in the world? It was rupees, materials, some food. Exploring didn't feel rewarding to me. The caves were all the same, and in summary, exploration just did not hold my interest, which is weird for a Zelda game, which is a game about exploration and puzzle solving, and two of these elements in the game I found lacking. For a sequel, it didn't feel like a sequel at all. The game feels like a reboot of Breath of the Wild, to be honest. There's so little connection between the games that it kind of hurts. The malice of Breath of the Wild is gone. It's replaced by gloom. People do not remember Link, even his neighbors in the village he lived in. And the Sheikah technology is just gone. By magic? A proof of magic without clear explanations? It all makes no sense. The game does not bother explaining anything. It does not, in a way, respect the legacy of its prequel. And the dungeons, they were the same as the Divine Beasts. I did not find them engaging. Same finding terminals, or turbines or little water wheels. Use your companion's ability on them and you solved the puzzle. You need to find a few in the dungeon that's non-linear still. The puzzles are overly simple. The dungeons are really short. Sure, they are themed, but slapping a very light theme on there does not differentiate them from Divine Beasts for me. That's where the game hurts itself again, in the fact that it is so open and there's such a disdain for linearity that dungeons just once again do not capture the essence of what made them so good in previous older Zelda titles. And are we going to mention the Water Temple, which baffled me when the name Water Temple appeared on my screen, putting it in the sky in a few segmented Sky Island sections? Underwater exploration should have been a core part of the game. And then they did not implement it. Once again, a huge failed opportunity, missed potential. They're among the worst Zelda dungeon of the franchise for me. All in all, Tears of the Kingdom is this baffling product. A game that has spent 6 years or so in development, longer than its prequel, which built engines and the entire world, and it took less time than building the sequel, which reuses everything from world to characters to music to features, and it is the same. And I do not understand why Tears of the Kingdom took so long to be developed, but part of me thinks that 5 years was dedicated to building Ultra Hand and refining the physics engine so it would not break. As much as it disappoints me to say, if you spent 5 years to develop a feature that is leaving people cold, and you left most of everything else to be developed in the last year, was it really worth it? I mean, the sales told you it's worth it, but was it really worth it for a Zelda game? It might have been a step too far, because you could. Maybe it doesn't mean you should have. And you know, it really hurts me to say this, because I was expecting so much from the game. and I was left the most disappointed I've ever been in a Zelda game. So what do you feel about Tears of the Kingdom? Did you like it? Were you disappointed by it? Is it your favorite Zelda game? What do you think about the different features like Ultra Hand, Ascend, and the word reused and everything that the game encompasses? Tell me all about it, and I'll see you for maybe a more positive video next time. Cheers.